Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 9 of Stars Align. And the last episode, oh my gosh, it was so good. There's been several of you comment both on Patreon and on YouTube about this series, and one thing I absolutely love about it is that it deals with topics that not only most anime shy away from, but most narratives in general. So like last episode, you have these two middle school kids having an existential conversation about things that adults worry about existence and identity and belonging and dealing with how you feel when you don't feel like you should exist. And it's just some crazy deep topics for this kind of show, but it handles it with such grace and realism and genuine sincerity that you just can't help but get enthralled and wrapped up in it. And it's set at the backdrop of a damn soft tennis club. So I was really, really happy with the last episode and how it was. And I feel like at this point, we've gotten into the backstories of Yuta and Maki and Itsuki and Rintaro. And even Mitsu last episode, we talked about her and her mother not feeling like she should draw. So I really feel like the only character we really haven't dealt into the backstory of, and we got Now last episode as well, the only one we really haven't dealt too much into is Toma. And he's one of the central characters. So I'm hoping, I know the sad thing is that the show ended before the creator wanted, and so I hope that within the last 4 episodes here we delve a little bit into Toma, just a little bit, even if we don't get it resolved, because there's clearly something between him and his mom going on. Don't spoil me, I don't know if we'll get to that or not, but I'm really curious if we do or not. My dog is like, pet me. But the other thing is that normally for a 12 episode series, I view it in terms of like a 3-act structure, right? You have your beginning, your middle, your end, your first act, second act, third act. And I would do that for this series, but I can't because the series wasn't meant to be a 12 episode season. It was meant to be 24, and then they cut it down. So the typical structure doesn't quite apply here, oddly enough. So it's kind of hard to talk about plot and where the story is going to go because I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know. We've had the one match against Masaki. I'm presuming that we're going to have a match between the girls, so I don't know if that's going to be this episode or if it's going to be like a 2-episode thing or the rest of this season, but I don't know if we'll actually get to a legit match, which is the whole point of the series, is Maki for them to win the match and get the funds. So I'm starting to see, as we're getting to episode 9 here, I'm like, oh, we only have 4 episodes left. I'm starting to see where the idea of it winding down and ending without conclusion is starting to like trickle into the back of my mind. And I'm not quite ready to think about that and all the plot points that we haven't wrapped up. So I'm not going to. I'm going to ignore it for now. But last episode was really good. And so I'm really curious to see what they do with this episode. But we shall see, right? So let's dive into this. Episode 9. Let us see what all is in store for us with Stars Align. And we are going to start that episode here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Oh my gosh, these kids, I want to like adopt all of them and get them away from their batshit insane families. What I do like about this show in dealing, there's so much melodrama, and again, they're middle schoolers, but their families, good lord, they are quite frightful. Like I said in the reaction, I feel like Maki, his dad's awful, but his dad's not there all the time. So I feel like that's to Maki's benefit. When he is there, it's really bad, but he's not there all the time. And his mom is really supportive and kind and compassionate, and I love her. She's great. So I feel like Maki, with his dad out of the picture, has a pretty decent home life compared to these other kids. They can't escape their parents. Their parents are there. And so I feel like we still don't know a lot about Toma and his situation, but his mom clearly doesn't like him. A lot of these moms, for a second I was like, man, these parents really don't like their sons. But it makes sense now that this woman is Shingo's stepmother. She's the stepmom. And I'm assuming that Anne is her child, but Shingo is not her child. So she obviously has favoritism towards her daughter, and then she views Shingo as like something that's there from a previous relationship. So there's a lot of insecurity on the mom's part, because mom's like, oh, Shingo looks like his mom, he acts wild, Anne's wilder when he's around. Like, she's associating Shingo with the former wife, And that's the reminder of the former wife to the dad, because she says, oh, your son looks just like her. And so she's obviously projecting her insecurities onto Shingo and the others. But oddly enough, at the beginning there, Shingo, I love their little tiny home. Like, it's so cute and it's so warm inside. It's like warm and cozy. So despite the stepmom being kind of overprotective and maybe a little bit jealous of Shingo and the relationship that he has with his dad, despite that, their house is pretty okay. Like, the dad's very supportive of Shingo and his friendship and everything with Tsubasa. So everything's kind of hunky-dory there. And then you cut to now, and I love the color contrast and the symbolism. Like, you have this warm, cozy, like, oranges and, like, warm reds and yellows, and it seems so inviting. And you hard cut to now's house that's in grays and muted colors and blues and very cold colors. Like, the color palette choices are really cool. And it kind of even goes to now versus Shingo. They're the red hair, the orange hair versus the gray hair. Like, it's a very distinct and specific choice to do it that way. But now, what I love about this too is that the creator keeps all of their actions very consistent. Like, now just constantly raking through the food, like just picking through it, not even paying attention to what's going on. And the mom being so hyper protective to the point where she doesn't even listen to her own kid. She doesn't even care about what he thinks, right? And then her telling him use his right hand. Like, that's another control factor. Like, he's a left-handed person. She's telling him to use his right hand. Like, she's a piece of work. Now's mom is. And it's something where everybody knows that she's like that, right? And what makes matters worse is that I didn't know if there was a dad in the picture, but you do see the dad. But the problem is the dad doesn't care. The dad's like, just go to work, do my job. He like eats breakfast, goes to work. She cleans up the dishes. He comes home, goes back to work again. Like, he seems very disinvolved with his family. And I didn't even realize at first. It threw me off when Now says, oh, I did quit the team. I quit for real, seriously. And at first I was like, you quit the team? And then when he showed up, I'm like, well, you said you quit the team, so is this in the past? But no, it's because Now's a pathological liar. Like, he's just a liar. And it didn't hit me until the end of this episode, rewatching it now. I'm like, oh, he lies, and that's his, he's under so much stress from his mom that he just can't help it. He just lies to try to make a new truth from himself. Like, his life is such that he doesn't like it, so he tries to lie his way into something that doesn't exist. That's so interesting. And the best friend picking up on it, the boy with freckles, I can never remember his name, but him picking up on it and just being like, yeah, that's just how he is. And again, talking about issues that you normally don't see with characters, is saying, oh yeah, this is what this character is like. And Now's not a bad person. He did some very questionable things, but in his mind, he tried to justify it, like locking her in the infirmary. He's like, if we don't have a game and it's canceled, then I lied to my mom? If we get the game canceled and we don't play a match, then I'm not lying to her, and then it's a truth. So I'll just do this action. And he tries to justify it in his own head, even though it's not a good choice or a good action at all. And I like that Maki catches him in the lie. He's like, well, where'd you go to? Well, you said you went in, so did you or did you not? I like this theme here that they established, that a lot of these parents, and it's so true to life, there are a lot of parents that try to project themselves onto their kids, or they try to project their insecurities through their children. Like, it's so true. I deal with a lot of high school age students and their parents, and let me tell you, some of these parents in this show, it's rare that we have the whole variety pack here. We have the whole variety pack on display. You don't see that a lot, but I've encountered every type of parent that's on here. The helicopter parent, the bulldozer parent that will just plow through to get what they want for their kid, the parent that wants to project their former glory days onto their children. That seems like it's Tsubasa's family. Like, Tsubasa's dad wants to project his success as a soccer player onto his children, and his two older sons are really good at soccer, but Tsubasa's not. And so the dad can't accept, and that whole line that Shingo that he tells Shingo where he's like, he doesn't consider soft tennis manly enough. It's worthless. I'm like, that is such a real thing. It seems like it's exaggerated, and they're like, oh, that seems so melodramatic. No, there are parents that are really like that with their kids. That if you don't play on the baseball team, if you aren't a catcher like I was a catcher, then it doesn't matter. There are sadly so many parents that are like that, and it's just, they can't move forward. They can't move on from their past. So they just project it onto their children. And it's kind of disturbing. I was fortunate enough, my parents were really athletic and really good at sports. And my brother and I are not. The athletic gene totally skipped a generation. My mom was amazing at basketball. She coached for years. She coached women's basketball. She was great. And then when it came time for me to play, my mom was like, you don't have to, but I wanted to. And so I did for a year. And then my mom was like, well, it's not for everyone. She was really supportive. She was like, you don't have to play if you don't want to. And I was like, okay, good, because I kind of don't want to. I wish now, after reading Slam Dunk and other sports anime, that I'd gone back and pursued it more, just for the fun and the socialization of it. But at the time, I was like, okay, I'm not good at it, so forget it. But looking at Nao's family here, like, how quiet it is. I love the dynamic and the contrast between the dinners with the families. Like when we see the kids' home life, you have Shingo's family who are talking and arguing and carrying on. You have Maki and his mom having conversations during dinner. Toma, when we've seen his family, he's kind of by himself with his brother, and the mom's not really there. But then you cut to Nao, and it's just silence. Like, they don't talk when they eat. They don't have any kind of conversations. The dad eats his meal, and then he moves on and leaves the parents there. And so that's so fascinating to me. It's very interesting. But little Anne, she's so cute. As soon as she was there, though, I'm like, something's going to happen. Something's going on. And we don't actually get to see the girls' tennis match, which is kind of... I would have liked to see them play the girls. And we kind of see a little montage of it, but we don't really focus on it. It's more along Nao's perspective and dealing with the team. And I was really hoping that Tsubasa had a great home life, because he was the last one for us to go view. And I was like, oh yeah, now Tsubasa probably has a better home life than everybody. His dad's abusive too. And oh my gosh, the way they animated that wrist being fractured, like just being swollen and purple, the way they animated it was so hard to look at. Going back to the Nao and Anne thing, I'm glad that Mitsu kind of took charge in this. I feel like this is the most proactive Mitsu has been in this series, because she instantly was like, we need to go find her, and she instantly runs up to the roof and is like, okay, it's locked, she can't get outside onto the roof. Good. And she's like so protective and watching over Anne afterwards, and I love that. I love how involved Mitsu gets in this, into watching over her. But it is hard, and one of the things, like, it's weird to like ship people in this series, but I like, before I get to Shingo and Tsubasa, I do like how they portrayed the animation of Nao, like him getting that like dead look in his eye, and it's kind of like they show the example of the lizard running away, and it's kind of like him trying to skirt away and slip through the cracks. But you can tell that he just starts to freak out and get this anxiety, and that's what kind of fuels his lies, right? Like when he stands over Anne, he tries to justify it. He's like, yeah, this is all Anne's fault. Anne was locked in the infirmary, so we had to cancel the game. It's all Anne's fault. And it's interesting to see, because there's been narratives I've read that have had pathological liars, and they're usually the villains. But Nao's not really a villain at all. And it's interesting to see this show from this point of view, to see Nao and his actions portrayed in full detail, to see the thought process that goes through his head. Like, why does he think the way that he does? It's interesting to see that, because you don't normally get that in a show with a character like this. You don't normally get to see that thought process in action, right? So that's really interesting. I really thought that the mom was going to get a lot madder about the girl running off, but I guess in the end everything was fine. And, in the moment, whatever. But I really thought she was going to get mad and fly off the handle, but she doesn't. She keeps her cool throughout most of it, which is good. I want to get back to this, but I haven't really shipped anybody in this show. I mean, Maki and Toma, I kind of do, but I kind of also do Toma and Yuta, so it's hard. So it's kind of hard. But I definitely ship Shingo and Tsubasa. Even if it's just bromance, even if it's just friendship, their friendship is so pure. And I love that when Tsubasa runs away, he just like subconsciously goes down the road and he stops in front of his best friend's house. And I love that Shingo instantly is like, we have to get you to a hospital now, and his dad drives him. And I like that the mom starts to get a little naggy about him, and the dad's like, they're friends, leave him alone. Like, it's cool that he has a friend. And I like that Tsubasa opens up about his dad to Shingo and kind of confesses, and Shingo, hears him out and listens and is empathetic. Like, that's really, really good. Like, all of them apologizing, and the girls being like, y'all are ridiculous. You didn't have to apologize like this. Like, it's fine. But even Taki getting on his hands and knees and apologizing. But I love the conversation that we have on the bridge with Yuta and Maki and Toma, and them explaining the pathological lying and caused by emotional stress. And everybody knows that it's now his mom. Like, it's common knowledge that she's overprotective to the point where she doesn't even notice her son's emotions, right? And I like that Toma admits that she takes it too far, and being overprotective can be a legit form of abuse. And the mom's like called him over and over again. You can see like every 5 minutes she's called him, wanting him to call back. And they try to justify it and say it's for their child. And what I really like about this conversation is that when they talk about the dad, they're like, Yuta says, doesn't now's dad not notice any of it? And Toma says his dad couldn't care less about family affairs. And for a second, Maki looks over at Toma, and it's kind of a double-sided thing. There's like two meanings behind it. One, it's funny because Maki can relate because his dad only shows up when he wants something, and that's the only time he cares. So there's some sense of empathy there. But then also I'm wondering if Maki has picked up that the way Toma said that, it's the same thing at Toma's family. His dad's not there. His dad's working overseas. He's not present in the picture. He doesn't care about family affairs. So I think that's interesting. And then we cut the back of Toma's head and it's quiet. So yeah, there's a connection between Toma and Now there, and then he instantly changes the subject and says, oh, the matches was great, weren't they? It's like catching on that. I like that all of these characters all interweave and their own personal problems overlap in such interesting ways. And that, again, is something you don't normally see. So, and I had such high hopes for Tsubasa's family. I was like, okay, his brothers are cool. They're all joking around. The mom's okay. But then, dang, the dad. Like, what the heck? And, of course, they're middle schoolers, so their attitudes are, like, just at the peak, right? And then, yeah, looking back, Shingo doesn't really look like his dad at all, so he must really look like the mom. But, the voice actor for Tsubasa is the same voice actor for Haiji from Run with the Wind, and I love him as a voice actor. And so he really, like, him sobbing, him crying, him, like, getting emotional in this episode, the voice acting was so good. Like, I absolutely love him. And then they go to the hospital, and you just know the doctor knows what's going on. The doctor's like, you didn't just fall down the stairs. You didn't just land like that. Like, you were clearly pushed. Like, just... the doctor just knows, but obviously he can't say anything or come to any conclusions, right? So, it's so frustrating. And then 2 months. It's a fractured wrist. 2 months he can't play. So I'm like, is he going to try to teach himself to hit with his other hand, left-handed, to try to combat that? Or is he just not going to be able to play anymore? Like, that sucks, because then Shingo, he's like, I don't want to work with another partner. I wanted to work with you. And that sucks so much. I don't know how they're going to deal with that, because you can't, it's got to be 2 months, so I don't know. He can't play unless he does it left-handed, so I don't know any other way they could go about it. But I love that conversation between the two of them at the end in the park. Like, that's such a good conversation, and I love that they get to have that between one another. This is a really good episode. It was probably the most tense episode that we've had in a while, like all the way through, like worrying about now and then worrying about Tsubasa and everything. Like it was a lot more elevated in its tension than the other episodes have been, even though I feel like the other episodes in the series have had bursts of intense moments, like at the very end, especially like with Maki's dad, with Yuta at the end of the last episode, but I feel like they haven't been like consistently like on the edge of your seat, and I felt that in this episode throughout. So kudos, show. But I'm really curious now with this development, what Shingo's gonna do, what Tsubasa's gonna do. Like, what are they gonna do about this? And the tournaments are coming up, so they're like one of your best pairs. And then him saying about how his dad just stood there and didn't do anything. So yeah, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you all thought of the episode. But yeah, I don't know. We've only got 3 episodes left. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe and take care. And I'll be back next week with episode 10 of Stars Align. Bye.